Well, happy Thursday morning, everyone, and welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma, and I appreciate so much you being with me. I truly do. I just keep saying this, but I tell you, I'm excited about it. Preterist Pilgrim Weekend, July 12th through 14th, 2018, Ardmore Convention Center. Yes, discounted hotel rooms are available right there on site. We'll be adding a hotel or two right here very quickly to our website so that you can have some other options. By the way, I was just contacted by one hotel that said they wanted to be listed. Anyway, we are discussing the redemption of creation, which is the time of the resurrection. Pardon me. The redemption of creation is the time of the new heaven and new earth. We are told that that's a literal, physical, material heaven and earth. In modern times, no one has done more to popularize the idea of a literal, physical, material heaven and earth than N.T. Wright. Now look, I love N.T. Wright's writings, but to me it's glaringly obvious of the hermeneutical hoops that Dr. Wright jumps through in order to justify his view of a yet future, literal, material, physical heaven and earth. It is the glaring fallacy in Dr. Wright's eschatology. Interestingly enough, in Romans chapter 8 and other passages, he sees the problem of the time element. He sees the problem that Paul realized the new creation, the redemption of creation was imminent. And so he struggles, and basically he just says, well, it'll just take a long time to get here. Well, that's not what Paul said. Paul never said it will take a long time for the new creation to arrive. He said they already were the new creation. The new creation was already at work. And he said the day of salvation, i.e., the time of the new heaven and new earth, because after all, just like Isaiah 51 promised, that in the day of the new covenant, the new covenant of salvation, in that day, guess what? The old heaven and earth would pass away. So here's Paul, who is a minister of the new covenant, 2 Corinthians chapter 4, 3 and 4, talking about the arrival of salvation at the day of the Lord, that he says the night is far spent, the day is already at hand. Well, anyway, what I want you to see here, and this may seem like a bit of diversion, but it is absolutely not. Because you see, when we keep in mind that Isaiah chapter 51 is about the fulfillment of the Abrahamic promises. Look to Abraham and the rock from whence you were hewn. Look to his promises. Well, what was the Abrahamic promise? Let me remind you once again, according to Hebrews chapter 11, the Abrahamic promise was a heavenly country, a heavenly city, the New Jerusalem, Zion. This theme of Zion is incredibly important. Look, William Bell and I did an entire series of studies on the eschatological Zion as presented just in the book of Isaiah. It took months to develop that theme and to discuss it on our program, Two Guys in a Bible. You can find that discussion. It's archived at www.fulfilledradio.com. Go there and just listen to the incredible promises surrounding eschatological, not literal, physical, material Zion, i.e. Jerusalem. So, here in Isaiah 51, and look, this will be our last lesson on Isaiah 51. Just a couple of things, real quickly. Isaiah 51 talks about Israel drinking from the cup of God's wrath. Israel had filled up the measure of her sin in Isaiah's day, But Isaiah also, in Isaiah 65, a passage we will begin examining next, God spoke of the time in which Israel would fill up the measure for sin, ultimately, as it were, and He would punish them, He would destroy them, and bring in the new creation. Well, I'm not going to talk any more about that, but I just want you to see this concept of Zion, redemption, salvation, and new covenant. In Isaiah 51, 5 and 6, God has promised the destruction of heaven and earth. Oh, but wait. His new covenant, the covenant of justice, the covenant of righteousness, the covenant of salvation, would never be destroyed. So you have the passing of heaven and earth, but you have the new covenant remaining and abiding forever. Boy, that needs to be developed. Anyway, but notice now, after the destruction of heaven and earth, God says, so the ransomed of the Lord shall return, come to Zion with singing, with everlasting joy on their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, sorrow and sighing shall flee away. Here is the eschatological Zion. But when is it? It's after the destruction of heaven and earth. After the giving of the new covenant. Now, if you have a literalistic mindset like my dispensational friends, then you've got a quandary here. The New Jerusalem doesn't come until after the destruction of heaven and earth of Isaiah 51. That's not to be found in the dispensational writings. They do not believe, okay? They do not believe that the restoration of Zion is at the destruction of heaven and earth. No, the restoration of Zion is at the beginning of the millennium, and the destruction of heaven and earth is at the end of the millennium. You see the temporal disparity here? Well, the amillennialist and the postmillennialist, guess what? They believe the new covenant was given on the day of Pentecost, began to be probated on the day of Pentecost, but they don't believe, they do not believe that heaven and earth passes away until the end of the gospel age. But wait, Isaiah says this new covenant will never pass away. Look, folks, the traditional views of eschatology cannot deal with Isaiah chapter 51. Here is the redemption of Zion. But the redemption of Zion takes place when? At the destruction of heaven and earth, at the giving of the new law. And somebody says, well, Preston, you've got a problem here because the new covenant began to be given on the day of Pentecost, and heaven and earth was not destroyed then. Peter's still looking for it. Well, no, that's not a problem for my position. Because the gospel had to be preached into all of the world before the end, i.e. the end of the old heaven and the old earth could pass away. Every jot and every tittle of the law had to be fulfilled before, quote, heaven and earth would pass away. Isn't that explicitly what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, 17 and 18? Do not think that I came to destroy the law and the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Verily I say unto you, watch this, until heaven and earth passes away, not one jot or one tittle shall pass from the law, until it's all fulfilled. The passing of heaven and earth is concomitant with the fulfilling of every jot and every tittle. So, if you're talking about literal physical heaven and earth in Isaiah 51, then the new covenant doesn't come until the passing of literal physical creation. Or if you acknowledge that this is the covenant creation, then the old covenant creation doesn't pass until the giving of the new covenant. But remember, Jesus said, no, the old creation doesn't come until the old is completely fulfilled. Everywhere we look in Isaiah 51, and when we compare what Isaiah 51 actually teaches, it destroys all three futurist views of eschatology. Isaiah 51 is awesome. But that's all I'm going to say on Isaiah 51. I've got more in my book, The Elements Shall Melt with Fervent Heat. Please go to my website, donkpreston.com, bibleprophecy.com. Order a copy of The Elements Shall Melt with Fervent Heat. Make mention that you saw the offer on YouTube or Facebook, and I'll refund your shipping. I'll pay your shipping. And don't forget, tomorrow we will continue my examination of Joel Richardson's book, Mystery Babylon, Unlocking the Bible's Greatest Prophetic Mystery. I have an apology to extend to Mr. Richardson tomorrow. You don't want to miss that. We'll see you on the flip side.